Hello, everyone. We're back for part four of wood carving meets diorama. Let's start off here with some images of the finished product. I think it turned out pretty good. Um, and then we'll I'll have to do a narration on this video. I lost all my audio files for it. So uh, we'll just kind of tell you what was going on as we go through it here. You can see the fish down in the water and the epoxy. Okay, we're making some grass out of some natural sisal twine. Basically, just cut off a piece that is plenty long for the grass you want to have, and just cut off a bunch of little pieces. You just kind of untwist them, get them loosened up, make sure they're not still all stuck together. And then if you get some hot water, a pan of hot water, it doesn't have to be boiling, but pretty hot. Throw the pieces in there, and you can just see them, the fibers just kind of relax and straighten out. They kind of lose that twist memory that they had. I got my daughter helping me with this part here. I just let them soak for just a little while. They don't have to be in there very long. And go ahead, scoop them out of there, lay them on a paper towel, and kind of get uh, most of the water off of them that way. And have some nice straight pieces of grass. And then the next thing we do, I just to speed up the drying process, we put them on a baking sheet with some parchment paper and put them in the oven for a while, just to get them dried out nice. And then here we're using those pieces of grass we made, kind of get it bundled together, hold it, and cut it in the middle. That we have a nice straight cut on the bottom where you want to glue it on, and the top is just random lengths. And we start gluing them on with some Elmer's glue all. It looks kind of blotchy and big globs of glue, but that all fills in nice, and the glue dries clear, and it ends up looking pretty natural when it's done. And here you can see what it looks like after it's all filled in and the glue's dried. Um, Turns out pretty nice. Looks just like some grass, and kept the path clear, kind of just a bare dirt path going through the grass. You see, it kind of have the rocks and the fish glued on there. We're ready to start adding different textures to this now. We had some rocks I want to put on the bottom of the river basin there, but I wasn't happy with the color. There's kind of a light tan color. Just put them in a little cup and added some dark granite acrylic paint. Just put a few drops of that in there. Along with some water. We go ahead and give that a stir with a stick. And it actually works really well. It ends up coating all the rocks nice and evenly, and gives you a much nicer base color. Remember, these are supposed to simulate rocks that are underwater, so they're not going to be real clear detail on it. Then I started using my glue water mixture to put down, and I just, it looked like it was soaking in a little bit too much, the other texture stuff. I tried putting that on there, and I just didn't, I had a feeling it wasn't going to stick very well, so I took it back off. Uh, then I just grabbed the straight glue all, not watered down, and I put some of that on there. Um, I was concerned it might fall off of there. Uh, Hindsight, we really probably wouldn't have had to do that, because this is all going to get encased in that epoxy anyway, and there's no way it's gonna come loose. But I put just the straight glue on there, a little thicker for the rocks to grab onto. Let that kind of spread around, and I'm going to go ahead and dump the rocks on there in a second. Just kind of generally sprinkle them around where I think they need to be. And spread them out a little more with a stick. I wanted it to just kind of be randomly spread out, look as natural as possible. And I wasn't happy with it. It looked like too much of one color. So after seeing what it looked like there, I decided I would add a few more colors sprinkled out through there just to make it look a little more natural. Use some black, some gray, and some brown. Again, I don't know if this really would have been necessary after everything is encased in that tinted epoxy for the water. I don't know that you can see a lot of the detail on these rocks, or that anybody is even going to be looking at it that close, but I just added a few more colors. Now we're going to go ahead and add some different textures to the ground. These are just some things I picked up at Hobby Lobby from their Diorama section. It's basically just a process of multiple layers of different types of textures, and you just kind of build that up in different places, and ends up creating a pretty realistic looking landscape. This first layer, I had that brown paint, and then I did the brown sand, and now we're going to add some green. And this first layer is kind of it's not, I don't think it's the finest grass you can buy, but it's the finer grass that I had, finer texture. So I just kind of covered everything with that. Again, just using that glue and water mixture. And just put that everywhere you want the grass to stick. End up using a lot of glue, a lot of layers, and that glue all just really works great for this. It holds everything together, it dries clear, really ends up with a nice finished product. I just go ahead and sprinkle that on there. It kind of soaks up the glue a little bit. The glue is soaked into the base, and it really sticks good. Some under the edge of that tall grass back there. Like I said, I don't remember the exact name. You'd have to pause the video where I was showing it to you. I don't. Again, all that was purchased at Hobby Lobby. There's different places to get it. Just do a search for diorama grass. Should be able to find it. There's a lot in that container. It'll do a lot of projects. I just took a dry brush to kind of get some of the excess grass stuff out of the river, kind of brush it back up. It probably wouldn't have looked too bad in there, like maybe look like moss growing on the rocks or something, but I just decided to kind of clean that up a little bit. Towards the end of the video, I've got some pictures I'll bring up, and I want to talk about them a little bit. Some issues, some lessons learned when I did the epoxy pouring. Here I've got a spray bottle. It's kind of a dollar store spray bottle. It doesn't work very good. You can see it dribbling, but basically it just has that same glue and water mixture. You just kind of soak everything down to lock it in place. So here's it's called an earth blend. It's a little bit more coarse than the last layer, and just going to go ahead and the same process as before, just adding another layer, and we're not trying to cover the whole thing, but just to kind of make it as realistic as I could. Just being careful not to get, to brush the grass off of the logs and want it showing up on there. There's a lot of interesting videos on this diorama stuff. People can really get into that. Again, just give it another little spray of that water. I did end up replacing that spray bottle eventually. It just didn't work well for that. It just kind of dribbles out. But a nice mist of that glue and water mixture really seals all that stuff together so it dries clear. Here's just another layer. This, I forget what this was called. It's again a little more coarse than the last layer, and I just kind of sprinkled it here and there, just a few, just to show like a few things laying on top of the other, just to give it another dimension. This has some little yellow pieces in it, just to make it a little more defined. Now this layer, they call it foliage clusters. It's kind of a spongy green stuff, and basically when you get this put on here, it looks like little shrubs, little evergreen shrubs or whatever, and I just think it adds a lot to it. Just put down a nice thick base of the glue, a couple spots, and just the concept of different layers, different textures, different places. Just kind of helps make it all come together. You just pinch a little bit of that spongy foam stuff off, stick it down on the glue, and it's pretty interesting how realistic that looks. There's a little bush, a little shrub. Add another one on the other side. And again, you just spray those down with more of that glue and water mixture just to help kind of lock it in place. But starting to come together at this point. Really happy with the results this far. And then now what I'm getting ready to do is same process, but I thought the riverbank looked a little uh, empty, or almost like there's a too distinct of a straight line across from side to side. So I wanted to break that up with another layer. So I got this kind of a coarse sand. It is on the tan side, but just kind of wanted to add a little something on that bank as it's going down into the river. it looked like it needed something, I guess. And sprinkle a little bit into the other rocks just so it's not. I was trying to avoid having like distinct hard lines. That's just not how things are in a natural setting. And here we've taken some of that same sisal grass that we made and we kind of soaked it up with some green acrylic paint. Um, I'm going to add a few little tufts of that kind of right on the river bank. My thought is that, being right close to the water, the grass might get more moisture and stay greener. And just to, once again, just to add another dimension, another layer, something else to look at when you're looking at the overall presentation of it. And just cut off little pieces, stick it down with glue. I don't remember the YouTube channel. I learned this trick with making grass. It was a guy that was making a diorama scene for like a railroad model railroad setup, and he was talking about how he made the grass this way, and I took that idea and ran with it. And I really like how that turns out. You can buy Hobby Lobby and other places. They sell some of that grass in little packets, and it looks nice and it would work fine. However, using that sisal twine is just a lot cheaper and it's kind of fun to do. So now here are these photos at the end. Hard lesson learned. If you ever have anything that's porous that you want to submerge in an epoxy pour, you have to make absolutely certain that those things are sealed totally before you pour your epoxy around it. I poured this epoxy in here to make the water, and it looked really good. Um, Went to bed that night, checked on it the next day, and completely surrounding my fish in there was just a cloud of little tiny air bubbles, and it just looked terrible. It's just because there was air trapped in the wood, and you submerge it in that epoxy, and eventually over time that air comes out of the wood, and it just made a cloud of bubbles around there. So I had to use a Dremel tool with a burr tool on it, and I had to just grind out all of that epoxy around the fish to get rid of all of those air bubbles. It took a long time. It was kind of nerve-wracking to do. I didn't want to grind away the fish, but I had to get right next to it just to get all that out of there. And it ended up turning out okay. If you look really close on the finished product, you can kind of see a faint outline in these areas that I had ground away with the Dremel tool, but it just poured more epoxy back in there, and it turned out okay. But definitely something to keep in mind if you ever are submerging a carving, a piece of wood, or something else that might have some air in it. Some kind of a sealer, or maybe even paint it with a thin coat of epoxy or something just to totally seal it up so that no air can get out of it. Here's just another view looking down uh, down in the epoxy. You can see how much I had to grind out of there with that. Anyway, here's the finished product, guys. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It was a long project using different techniques that I hadn't tried before. It kind of the goal was to take that Richard Butte's carving, which is an excellent project, and just present it in a little more detailed manner. And hopefully you enjoy this. I'm going to try to do a little bit more, uh, making some more videos coming up here, and maybe a little better camera and lighting, and try to get some more projects to share with everybody. But yeah, if you have any questions or comments, just let me know. Um, I took a little turntable here to spin it around at the end to get you guys some different angles. And, but yeah, if you have any questions or any ideas or any projects you'd like to see me do, just go ahead and leave a comment or start a discussion about it. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to check out this video and some of my other ones, and just keep watching. I'll have some more stuff coming out pretty soon. Thanks.